Microphone. Testing. Good morning. My name is Pastor Sanders. This is the West Park Baptist Church, located at 4600 West 150th Street, Cleveland, Ohio. Our email is westparkbaptistchurch@yahoo.com. Our website is wpbccleveland.com, and you can find all of the information related to schedule times, giving, videos to our our YouTube channel. All those things can be found at wpbccleveland.com. Today we find ourselves in Ezra, the 6th chapter. It is a story about the people of Israel coming back from exile, and they have built homes. They've built fabulous homes. They've been in exile for 70 years. There's a prophet named Ezra who reminds them that they have forgotten about God. They have been blessed, but they have forgotten about God. It is a familiar story. It seems so easy to forget God. He's given so much. If we are believers of the story, and I am, that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever should believe in him would not perish, but he came to the world not to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved. We believe that our salvation comes through an understanding of Jesus Christ. I would say personally that it comes from an understanding of the consciousness of Jesus Christ. You must be conscious, as far as I'm concerned, of who Jesus is, who you are in relation to Jesus, and the fact that there's a very intricate relationship that is outlined in the Word of God, where Jesus Christ becomes an example for us as humans. Jesus shows us how this model works. He shows us how the mind works. He goes to a wedding and they run out of wine. He recognizes the ongoings of the relationship between him and his mother. He says to his mother, "Woman, really? I am somebody, and you know that I'm special, but I've got a timetable." Mom says, "The time is now. Do what you do. Do whatever he says do. I don't want to hear anything else." Jesus shows us how this model works. It's as if you have a brand new car that in this case matures. And at a certain level of maturity, Jesus at 30 years old, you begin to do some things that eye have not seen, ear have not heard, and you become powerful if you are in order. Not real aware of Jesus's partying stage. But I do know that he was in the temple as a young boy. It appears that he kind of disappears from record. For those who read just the record of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, there are other books. The book of Tobit, the book of St. Mary, the book of Susanna. There are other books that were not included, but if you read them, you'll see about the life of Jesus if you're ready for that. Leadership is about being known to yourself and having the courage to express it at the time, regardless of what appears before the eye. Sometimes leadership means leading great crowds. Our history has shown us that kind of leadership also requires a certain level of self-ambition. It's not always leadership. The best leadership that I have seen are persons who can discipline themselves and become the best that God has called for them to be. To provide for their families, to provide for their own minds, their health, and to have what they need when they need it. Leadership is about self. I would encourage you to read some Waldo Emerson. Some of you might be shocked to find out that he is the father of American literature. He is the father of American literature. And all he writes about is self-reliance. That's all. He writes essays, went to Harvard, ordained preacher, son of a preacher, who was the son of a preacher, who was the son of a preacher. He encourages people to think. We find that people do not like to think. They'll do as much as they can with their hands, and we find that people will do an extraordinary amount of work to get out of working. All of these things are wrapped up in Ezra, the 6th chapter, where the people of God are brought back to their homeland, something that most African Americans know nothing about. Oh yes, I know where Marion, Alabama is. That's where my father is from. I stood at my grandfather's grave right off of Route 14 in Perry County. I know where my mother is from, Little Rock, Arkansas. I've been there too. I've been to Little Rock. But that's not where we're from. That's not our homeland. These people were taken from their homeland. We know about that. But in a very short 70 years, and I say short because some people were alive to see their temple destroyed and taken to another land and forced to speak another language, eat another food, live another culture, and then experience freedom enough to go back home and experience building homes where they had been taken from, and experience building the temple successfully and completing the temple. That's where we are today. That's shouting time. We don't know anything about that physically, but we have been charged as a people to find our home spiritually and prayerfully, physically. And let me start by saying that our home is not the ghetto. The ghetto is where we have been designed and funneled to go. The ghetto is not our home. Until you've seen Ghana, until you've seen Botswana, until you've seen South Africa, until you've seen Mozambique, until you have seen the Nile Valley, until you have seen Lake Victoria, you don't know who you are as a person of African descent. Until you have seen Brazil, Central America, all those places where there are people that look just like you and I, but they speak either Portuguese or French or Dutch or one of those, you don't know who you are. I am encouraging you to travel the world, take your mind and your heart with you, and see the image of God, and to thine own self be true. Go back home. Go back home. I think the worst consequence of this transatlantic slavery process is that some of our people have become stingy. That is not our nature. We are a generous people. We feel at our best. I'm talking about people of African descent, which is everybody, by the way, but let me qualify that by saying Negroid people of African descent. We are a generous people. We give. We give. We've given so much that we have created the greatest economy in the history of humanity, and we did it for free. We give. We give. We understand, we embody, we live, we appreciate, we embrace the law of generosity. We give. Giving is our nature. We give. Even our thieves like to give. Even the liars want to come back around and give. Drug dealers, they want to give. You go to any bar, anywhere in our community, and you'll find people that want to give. They want to give. We give. A person on the street in the hood will get or run into somebody who may not have a lot, but they will give. That's our nature. Somehow we have allowed for history to interrupt our giving nature, which is a reflection of who God is, and we have become takers. And we are not takers. We are givers. That is why in Africa you don't own land. You can have it for as long as you want it. You can have it for 99 years. And your children can have it for another 99 years, and their children can start another 99 years, but you never have to own the land. Ownership is not necessary because we are givers, and we understand the nature of the ultimate giver, which is God. I need for you to read. That's the kind of leader I am. I am reading online, actually now, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community by Dr. Martin Luther King. You must read this book. You must read it. You must turn off the TV. You can even turn me off. You must read. You must find time to read. One of my greatest frustrations is that by the time I get to bed at night, I am so tired that I have not taken some time to just leisurely read. I read for my job all the time, but that's not leisurely reading. That's research reading. That's work reading. I need time to develop my mind intellectually. I am an intellectual individual, and if you do not feed your intellect, it will die and you cannot be self-fulfilled. This is one of the books that I'm reading, and it gives a totally different perspective of the lies that they tell on Dr. Martin Luther King about how he was a pawn of the government and this and that and a tool of the white folks. Those are people who do not read, who say those things. They say things that will cause people to think that they know what they're talking about, and they have self-ambition. They want to be leaders, and as a result, they establish likes, and they say controversial things which are not based in fact, but they're just based in opinion. Those are not leaders. I don't have a desire to be a leader. I have the qualities and the capacity to be a leader. But those people that want to be seen are not necessarily leaders. I should say this. I am finding that now, and it's not new to my life, but now we have leaders who have been in leadership for several decades. And for several decades, I'd say the last 3 decades in the black community, we have seen a rise in drug use. We have seen a rise in poverty. We have seen a rise in homosexuality, division of family, the emasculation of the male, and we have seen a decrease in political power. Even with a black president, we saw a decrease in political power. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, where there is 0 political power. There are a lot of people who have been in power for decades, who know the system, who know how to bless their people and how to take care of their family, and the communities, East Cleveland, Maple Heights, Garfield Heights, Bedford, Cleveland, have spiraled downward in terms of the poverty index, and there's no end in sight. Meanwhile, the West Side continues to flourish. It'll sputter, it'll decline, but it will rise again. And there is a consistent flow of money on the West Side to solve the problems. That has not changed in 30 years. And so they begin to make up what I call the Committee of Dead. They've been dead for at least 20 years, but they're still in power. That's a tough statement. But I'm just talking about what I see, not what I heard. And the new generation no longer needs any qualifications. They don't need degrees. They don't need public policy strategizing. They don't need any experience. All they need is enough influence to gain an office. And then nobody knows what happens after they get in office. Woo! The committee of dead being replaced by the committee of incompetence. That's what we are experiencing in the black community, and no one reads because history is irrelevant. I refer to this book all the time, Jesus and the Disinherited. Dr. Martin Luther King carried it around with him in his briefcase daily. He read daily. I think it's interesting that both Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were both insistent on going to the library or a bookstore the day that they died. Both of them were on their way to the bookstore in order to read another book. What book could they have possibly been reading? Readers are leaders. You cannot lead without reading. It's all in a book somewhere. There is nothing new under the sun. The laws that we encounter in the text of Ezra 6 are numerous. We find this celebration where they have finished the temple. They finished the temple. All that exile, they have finished the rebuilding of the temple. It is an amazing feat, both spiritually and physically, for the people to come together and to the leadership to come together, the government to come together and do what's right for the community spiritually. The only time politicians come to church in our community is when they're running for office, and we never see them again until it's time to run for office. We cannot access them, we cannot talk to them, and when we do see them, they've got somewhere to go. They're so busy ensuring that our communities get worse. That's not what's happening here. What's happening here is that we are experiencing a glimpse of what is called a theocracy. God's government. God is in control. Not a democracy, but a theocracy. God has moved the hearts of the people to work together on behalf of the people and their relationship with God. It is marvelous. This text is marvelous. This text is community development at its highest peak. This text is the collective unification of economic resources. This is Ujamaa at its best. It actually occurs in Africa. Wow. There is a lot in this text which we could learn from, and this text is not about any individual, not even Ezra. This text is about the people coming together to glorify God, the people coming together to build God's temple, the people coming together and realizing that there are some principles operating that we simply cannot ignore. Let me lift up some of those principles if I can. And one of those principles, we're talking about a cheerful giver, is that we must understand that God always gives us more than we need. I said that earlier in Sunday school, but the first principle is that God never, or God always gives us, he never just gives us just enough. That's what I want to say. God never just gives us just enough. He does not. He does not. Don't lie on God. He didn't just give you just enough. God always gives us more because there is always more to do. When you realize that you can eliminate your debt, you also realize that if you had some reserve, I'm talking about reserve creation on demand, that you can get some more done. Our life is not intended to be lived in debt. Wow, I said that. Because right now, you will get a phone call today and someone will call you and say, hey, would you like to buy this product? They're not selling a product, they're selling debt. Debt is how our economy functions. The Federal Reserve operates on debt. They offer stimulus because they want to create debt. They want to create the circulation of money where there is debt, there are loans, there are deposits, and when there is what they call healthy amount of debt, it allows for those that know how the system works to make more money. But those who are poor are barraged with debt in order to carve out what we call a successful life. But if you are in debt, you know and I know that you are one paycheck or one phone call or one tragedy away from being in a self-imposed prison, which is the worst kind of debt. We live in a country where they used to put people in jail for debt. I'm trying to talk to somebody, and when we consider that, I want us to understand that God never just gives you just enough. You may have just enough, but that's not because God did it. Somehow the Word of God must begin to teach us how to manage our blessings in such a way that when we plant a seed, we experience unlimited exponential growth. Everything that we touch must experience unlimited exponential growth. And I know that the best way to eliminate poverty is to show people how to do it. I said it. It is to show people how to take what they have and use it to experience unlimited exponential, let me add this, debt-free growth. Unlimited exponential debt-free growth. When our ancestors were, let me call it, freed from the plantation, notice that the next move was that the master, or the slave owner, the landowner, offered them the opportunity to become sharecroppers. And do you know what sharecropping means? Debt. You can be in debt for the rest of your life. At the end of the year, because you may not be able to read, you may not understand the economic system, because some of us can read and we still don't know how to read the stock market page, you can't make contracts, you don't really know math well. So at the end of the year, after you do that hard, arduous work on the plantation, at the end of the year, because I know math, I have the pen, the paper, and the land, I can say, well, it looks like you made $300, but you owe me $450. So here's what I'll do. I'll loan you some money. And we'll work on next year's debt. And maybe next year you'll have a better year. And the next year, you might make $350, but you still owe me $450. So you've made some progress. I'll loan you some more money with interest. Therefore, debt means that whoever holds the note owns you, whether or not it is legal slavery or not. I'm asking somebody, and I'm really preaching to myself, eliminate your debt so that for one time in your life, you can experience freedom. Just one time. Just for a little while. If you want to go back into debt because you believe that that's the best way to live, it's okay, but for one time in your life, eliminate all debt if you can, so that you can experience in this lifetime what it feels like to be free. like they felt in the book of Ezra in the 2nd chapter or the 6th chapter. They were free. They were free to worship their God any way they wanted to. They were free to build their home where they wanted to. They were on their own land with their own God, and they had already been through a living hell, and there wasn't anything that anybody else could do to them again. That's called freedom. If you want to be a cheerful giver, understand that giving is a process. Understand that God gives in a certain way. And the way that God gives is that God always gives more. God kind of gives the way we give to our children. Ma, I need $10. Give them 11. Give them 12. You might need a little money for a phone call. Always have enough for a phone call. You never know. You're always going to need a little bit more. I changed my name. My name is now Work. What's my name? Isaiah. What's my first name? Work, huh? What's my second name, Joe? Work. What's my third name, Isaiah? Ah, shucks. Guess what my name is? My name is Mr. Work, Work, Work. Huh? Because I know that if I work, sooner or later I'm going to get paid. I'm going to get harvest. I'm going to eat. I'm going to buy. I'm going to live. I'm going to travel. But it starts with work. Do what you need to do today so that you can do what you want to do tomorrow or tonight. But you must work. You must work. And for those who do not work, that means that your brain is dead, because your work comes from your ideas, and your ideas come from God. God gives you ideas so you can work, so that you can be free. Power concedes nothing. Nobody is going to give you your freedom. We are going to get reparations. Oh, yes, we will. We are going to get reparations. And you know how? Because we are going to work. And when it comes time, we are going to take what belongs to us, because we will be in position to vote, to legislate, and we will be owners, and we will be voters, and we will be in a position to establish a righteous order like they're establishing here in Ezra 6. It is an equitable distribution. Some call it Christian socialism, but we will get our reparations. You know why I know it's coming? Because in our lifetime, we have never experienced anything like the WPA program, the creation of welfare, or actually the creation of the welfare state, like they did under Roosevelt. But you cannot like Sleepy Joe all you want to. Sleepy Joe is writing some checks. And he's writing some checks because they have the money. Everybody in government knows that if we wanted to eliminate poverty, we could do it yesterday. Why would I say such a preposterous thing? Because we can go over to Afghanistan, we can go over to Ukraine, we can even go over to Vietnam, we could go to Korea, and we could literally go to an area that was hundreds of thousands of acres bare and literally establish an army base and build a city overnight, with every amenity known to any city here in the Americas: concrete, airport, planes, shops, schools, everything that is needed to support a community in the middle of nowhere. And if we can do it in the middle of nowhere, we can do it in Cleveland, Ohio. Stop lying to me. More importantly, stop lying to yourself. We send troops everywhere. We don't send them empty-handed. They go and they have internet, they have every convenience that you can possibly think of in the middle of nowhere. Why not here? Reparations is coming. Reparations is coming. The question is not whether or not it's coming. The question is whether or not we will be ready to receive it. When reparation comes, will we continue to spend our money or will we save it? The message of Ezra 6 is that they had money saved up to build their own houses and to build the house of God. There is no mention of them going out to work to get all of the supplies that they needed to build the house of the Lord. Over 70 years, they learned how to save so that when they needed it, they had it. And the prophet knew that he wasn't preaching to poor people. Whoo, that'll preach right there. Help me, Holy Ghost. Ezra knew that he wasn't preaching to poor, broken, downtrodden people. Some people think that that's what ministry is. I don't want to be in that ministry. I'm telling you now. I'm not preaching to folk who are broken. I'm preaching to folk who can and will overcome. I'm looking for the conscious people. And they're there. The conscious, thinking people. To thine own self be true. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Everybody that comes to church doesn't have to be broke, and they're not. And they're not. It's just that when you go to churches, there's a lot of poverty-minded people and preachers who are teaching poverty. And nobody, including me, really wants to hear about poverty. I don't even want to see it on the news. I don't want to visit the neighborhoods. I am not involved in some love affair with poverty. Maybe you are, and if you are, that's why we aren't kicking it. But I am involved with the best things of life, the best places, the best food, the best books, the best music, the best fellowship, the best nature, the best flowers, the best books. I am involved in that because my God is involved in the best. I believe that God operates in the best. How can God operate in me when I am not operating in my best? Cain, Abel, no matter how much we give, we will not catch up with God. God will always give more. It is his nature. But because it is our nature, as we create, not compete, but as we create, we learn how God operates. And we understand why God gives constantly. It is in our giving. Therein lies our living. I may have said this, but I'm going to try to say it this way, prayerfully. Someone who has not heard what I've said thus far may hear it this way. God always gives more. I said I changed my name to work, work, work. I think I'm going to change the name of God to more. More. He always gives more. Some of y'all call God Allah. Why can't I call him more? Some of you call him the light, the bread, the water. I want to call him more. Some of you all call him Jehovah Nisi, Jehovah Jireh, Adonai, El Shaddai, Elohim. You know I could go on all day. I am, way, the truth, the life. I want to call him more. Because my God is a more God. You ought to have more than you need. You ought to have more than you need. And I think I'm going to stop here because I want to. There are some people whose religion is I can't. Their religion is control. Their religion is scarcity and lack. Everything's always running out. Everything's always coming to an end. They're always afraid of a tragedy. I am slowly but surely weeding those people out of my network. There are some people that if you go to dinner with them, they're always counting your food. They're counting how much you have, how much you're going to spend, what you're eating. There are some people, if you get a new car, they're going to, rather than celebrate, they're going to tell you how much you shouldn't have spent. And if you let those people in your circle too often, they will convince you that you don't deserve what you work for. They'll convince you that you don't deserve what God gave you. And they'll embed that ignorance in your mind and in your heart and in your spirit. You'll wind up with nothing. And they still won't be happy. That will just give them fuel, logs for the fire. Therefore, I am going back to Ralph Waldo Emerson and self-reliance. To thy known self be true. There's a book called The Road Less Traveled. Travel the road that is less traveled. Be your own man. Be your own woman. Take care of your own family. Find your happiness in you. Nine out of 10 people in this world that you encounter are mediocre and average. Mediocre and average. If you want to find 10 beautiful black women today, find 10 of them. Go to the store, count to 10. I wonder what percentage of them will have false hair. Wonder what percentage of them will be covered in tattoos. Wonder what percentage of them will have read one of the books off of the top 10 bestsellers list. Wonder what percentage of them will have completed a college degree program. Wonder what percentage of them have any investments, CDs, any money in the bank, any pension, anything. Let's just break it down. Out of those 10 women, how many of them have some money, making some money while they're asleep? How many of them are growing daily as opposed to dying daily, looking for someone to breathe life into their death process? Poverty is a death process. Our Bible is an anti-poverty document. It's what it is. It's an anti-poverty program document when it is interpreted with your mind and your heart and the God consciousness in you. This text ends by saying they did eat. Oh yes, they ate. And all of that, they ate. And you know eating is a beautiful thing. They ate. They did eat. It does not end by saying, and they suffered, and they died, and they were sick, and they waited on God to come by and by. They ate. In other words, it's time to eat. Say that any way you want to. It's time to eat. And it's time to eat right now. Everybody enjoys hearing the dinner bell. The good news is that the dinner bell is ringing. It's time to eat. It's time to eat right now. Oh, come and sup with the Lord. Remember, there's a motif about the Lord's Supper. Come unto me, all you who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Do not deny the children. Don't deny anybody. Go to the highways and the byways. It's eating time. If I'm going to change my God's name to more, I think I might get away with changing worship to eating time. Lord have mercy. Because we need to eat. We need to have the banquet set. We need to have the invitation. We need the good news. We don't need any more pie in the sky. We need to eat right now, and not just eat any old thing. We need to eat God's food. Not devil's food, not even angels' food, but God's food. Oh, taste and see how good he is. Oh, thanks be to God for the banquet table. There is a word from the Lord, it's like manna from heaven. There is a word from the Lord, it's like water from a rock. There's a word from the Lord, it's like a raven feeding the prophet while he was by the brook. The birds brought him food. God always provides. God always provides. God always provides. And because God always provides, we ought to always be grateful. We ought to always say thank you. Because if it had not been for the Lord, ain't no telling where we might be. If it had not been for the Lord on my side, tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for the Lord on my side? Tell me where would I be? Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Where would I be